So, what I'm going to want you to do now is take a minute, and you're going to be able to input this using play pause it. Um, write down, I don't know, 5 cultures, subcultures that you are a member of. Okay, uh, based on your geography, based on your behavioral trends, based on who you are, based on organizations you may be a part of. You just think it through a minute and write it down. 5. Okay, thanks. Okay, so each of these is a group or a culture. Our stories help define our culture. Story is like a big word these days. I'm seeing this cropping up all over the place in marketing. Every brand has to tell its story. It's interesting. It's funny. It gets me to think back to, these oral tradition cultures, some ancient cultures, where things weren't written down, where stories were told around the campfires, they say, in the tribe, about the origin of the tribe, or the story of some hero or heroine, battles fought, etc. At night, around the fire, and I sort of think about the brand. The brand's kind of telling those stories. 2, stories help define our culture. Keep talking about Simone Biles, but that's a story. She has a story. It goes way beyond just the Olympics in Tokyo, doesn't it? It goes back to, I almost feel I should put her up here. Again, let me see. Hang on. Me, I'm going to do things sometimes as the spirit moves me. This is the first class. I'm going to pull it up. So I want you to think about Simone Biles' story, her life story. I'm waiting for her. There she is. Putting her in here. Okay. Now I'm gonna save it. For instance, where does she come from? Who are her parents? What has she been through in her life to get where she is? How many hours a day has she practiced and honed her craft? How many competitions has she appeared in and lost or won? She's done a lot of major winning. She's invented new moves in Olympics that other people can't even do. Another story involving her and involving all the female Olympic athletes in the U.S. involves a sexual it's not harassment, a sexual abuse story. And I would imagine a number of you are aware of that. This Dr. Larry Nassar, who abused in horrific ways female gymnasts for years and years, and got away with it. It would appear protected by American Gymnastics Federations. I'm not sure what the name of the group was. Simone Biles was part of that. In fact, I don't want to misstate here. I'm not sure if she was one of the ones who was abused. I think she was. That's part of her story, too. Um, so, all played out in the public stage. Um, and then an athlete who, because of pressures and because of whatever she's bringing from her past and her background, um, has this kind of breakdown. Can't perform in the Olympics, but nevertheless comes across as, in a way, even more of a hero because she stood up for herself and for her own health. This is a great story, and not just a simple story of one event. There are other athlete stories, and there are other relationship stories. A story that we see repeated in film after film and TV show after TV show is a typical romantic relationship story. Boy meets girl, or girl meets girl, or boy meets boy, or they meet they. Um, and it looks like a relationship is budding and beginning. And then something happens, some jealousy, or something happens. A parent forbids something, or someone gets suspicious about something, and all of a sudden this relationship is thrown off track, and then we have problems and upset. Think Romeo and Juliet, and the couple splits up, and then somehow in a comedy the problem is solved. They get back together. In a tragedy like Romeo and Juliet, they do not get back together. Shakespeare comedies end in marriage, usually for the main characters, and the tragedies end in death for the main characters. But the basic romantic story is repeated again and again. That's one of our stories that we sort of tell around the campfire. It's not a historical story or a story of wars or battles. It's another kind of story. It's a relationship story. What are some other common stories in our culture? Think about movie plots that are done again and again and again with different named characters. And one that really occurs to me is Rocky, which is the story. What is the story of Rocky? Okay, I hope you've seen Rocky. There have been about 10 Rocky movies. I hope you have some familiarity with it as a story. I know it's before your time. But it's this young athlete who's from the other side of the tracks, not getting the backing of the well-financed and supported athlete, and yet works at the craft, at the sport, trains and trains and trains, the training and the suffering during the training. And this has been, I don't know how many movies and TV shows have shown this athletic story. And then the final moment of going to the competition and either winning or losing, but losing nobly, and living to fight again another day. What other stories can you think of from our culture? Okay, I'm thinking of the story of the Garden of Eden, that once we all lived in a paradise, Atlantis, okay? And something happened and we were thrown out of that paradise into the cold, hard world. And we managed to scrape and scrabble our existence, dreaming of the golden land and wondering how we could get back to it. What other stories are common in our culture? thank you. That's Sylvester Stallone when he finally wins the heavyweight bout. I'm not sure he wins. Does he win the first fight? I think maybe he does. I think he does win. Yeah, he wins. Yeah, but I think the second movie he loses it because he gets too proud. That's sometimes the second chapter in the proud, successful athlete story is pride goeth before a fall. Okay, so this is a worksheet you guys are going to do. I'm going to set this up somehow, some way, probably on Padlet, since you need to share your work here. I don't think I can do that on PlayPosit or some other way. But this is an exercise. It's from your book. I'm hoping you can see the whole thing here. Can you? I should hope you can. Let's see. Ooh, what I did. Okay. All right, we're going to do this exercise. Now, I'm going to stop. Well, I can't even see the darn thing now. Wait a minute. I hope you can read that, guys. Okay. Let's just see what else I have here. Okay, so we will stop here. Mass communication and culture. I just have to summarize first a little bit what we've talked about. That mass communication comes out of and feeds back into culture, society, and that it speaks in a language that's understood by its culture. It influences and is influenced by the culture. And values can change in a culture. Mass media can help reflect the change and help cause the change. If I were to, and I don't have slides on this, I did have some, but then I pulled them out, but I'm just going to put this out there. Gayness, homosexuality. Our societies in America, our view of that has changed dramatically in the past 20, 30, 40 years. We have a way to go as a culture on that and as a society, certainly. A long way to go. But gay marriage would not have been possible 30 or 40 years ago. Mass media played a big part in changing people's attitudes towards being gay. I can think of a lot of TV shows, and I'm sure you can too, where gay characters were shown and as real human beings and leading happy lives. And these TV shows were beamed into homes in Yankee America, in all those parts of America, in the South, old New France, and all those parts of America we saw. And they changed how people, particularly younger people, I think, whose ideas maybe weren't as hardened as the older people's, changed their attitudes towards being gay. Mass media can have quite an impact on culture. Culture is defined in many ways. We're all parts of many different cultures. Okay. Again, this is the topic for a whole major probably. And next we're going to talk about media literacy.